October 21st, 2009.
Roger, we got distracted and we've overflown Minneapolis.
Northwest Airlines Flight 188 is cruising high above the American Midwest. It's a routine journey to Minneapolis bound from San Diego, with 144 people on board. The skies are clear. Air traffic is normal. But then something unusual happens. For over an hour, no one can reach the cockpit. Radio calls go unanswered. Controllers are baffled. Fighter jets are placed on standby. And by the time Flight 188 finally responds,
on a completely different frequency than the one you were assigned.
It is no longer where it's supposed to be, and no one knows why. Did something happen in the cockpit? Did the pilots fall asleep, or worse? Was it an accident? A hijacking? A medical emergency? And most haunting of all, did anyone survive? This is the story of Northwest Airlines Flight 188, the flight that disappeared without ever leaving the sky. San Diego International Airport is busy but not overwhelmed. It's one of the nation's major hubs, with dozens of aircraft arriving and departing every hour. To maintain operations on time, ground crews move quickly across the tarmac. Inside the terminal, passengers make their way through security and gather near Gate 14. They are sipping coffee, scroll through phones, and glance up at the gate from time to time. Some are flying home. Others are headed to business meetings or family reunions. No one seems rushed. It's a regular domestic flight, on time, ordinary, uneventful, or so it seems. Their flight, Northwest Airlines Flight 188, is getting ready to board. The gate agents call groups by number. It is heading to Minneapolis-St. Paul, over 1,500 miles away. The aircraft waiting at the gate is an Airbus A320. It's a sleek, narrow-body jet with twin engines and room for about 150 passengers. Painted in Northwest Airlines red and silver livery, the A320 is one of the most commonly used aircraft in the world. Known for its fuel efficiency, reliable handling, and solid performance on mid-range routes like this one. In the cockpit are two experienced pilots. Captain Timothy Cheney, age 53, has flown with Northwest for many years. First Officer Richard Cole, age 54, also has thousands of hours of flight experience. Together, they've handled dozens of flights like this before. The scheduled departure is just before 3 in the afternoon. As passengers settle into their seats and overhead bins click shut, the cockpit crew completes their final checklists. The engines spool up. The jet pushes back from the gate. Flight 188 is cleared for takeoff. Everything seems normal. But somewhere over the skies of the Midwest, something unexpected is about to happen. Something that will leave air traffic controllers and airline officials scrambling for answers. And it all begins with silence. Northwest Airlines Flight 188 departs from San Diego International Airport at 3:01 p.m. Pacific Time, which is 5:01 p.m. Central Time. The plane is scheduled for a routine flight to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport with an expected arrival time of 8:01 p.m. Central Time. The weather in San Diego is clear, and the flight crew begins the flight without any reported issues. The plane climbs steadily, cruising high above the Rockies. The crew maintains regular contact with air traffic controllers, passing through Denver's airspace on schedule. For nearly 2 hours, everything appears normal. But then, just before 7 p.m. Central Time, something changes. Over Denver, air traffic controllers prepare to hand Flight 188 off to Minneapolis's radar. They radio the pilots, instructing them to switch frequencies and check in with Minneapolis ARTCC. Silence. Controllers try again. And again. No response. Back at Northwest's dispatch center, alarm bells ring. Multiple attempts are made to contact the flight crew, but the cockpit remains silent. Other pilots flying nearby hear about the missing contact and try to reach Flight 188 to see if the crew needs assistance. They too receive no reply. NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, tasked with protecting North America's skies, stands ready to scramble fighter jets. Officials at the White House are briefed on the unusual and worrying silence. Minutes feel like hours. Then, just as the fighter jets prepare to take off, the radio crackles to life. Minneapolis controllers reconnect with Flight 188. But the aircraft is not where it's supposed to be. It's over Eau Claire, Wisconsin, more than 100 miles past Minneapolis, far beyond its intended destination. Inside the cockpit, Captain Cheney and First Officer Cole are stunned. They had no idea how far off course they had flown. It's only when a flight attendant asks about their expected arrival time that the crew realizes something has gone terribly wrong. Controllers ask the pilots to perform maneuvers to prove they have control of the aircraft. Gradually, it becomes clear the plane and crew are safe, but the incident has shaken everyone involved. Finally, at 9:04 p.m., Flight 188 touches down at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, bringing the harrowing ordeal to an end. The runway lights greeted an aircraft that had gone silent for over an hour. But what caused the crew to lose contact? How did the plane drift so far off course without anyone noticing? Now everyone wants to know. Why? Those are the questions investigators will soon seek to answer. As the aircraft taxied to the gate, federal agents and airline officials are already waiting. Shortly after landing, both pilots, captain and first officer, are questioned. The answers they give surprise many. They say they weren't asleep. Instead, they admit to something else. They're on their personal laptops, reviewing scheduling information. For nearly an hour, both men are distracted, not from fatigue, but from multitasking. They don't hear repeated calls from Denver or Minneapolis ATC. They don't see the messages sent by dispatch. They simply lose track of time and location while the aircraft continues on autopilot. This revelation raises serious concerns. Using personal laptops in the cockpit isn't just a bad idea, it's a direct violation of Delta Airlines policy and a basic failure in cockpit discipline. Delta has recently merged with Northwest, and both airlines have strict rules on this kind of behavior. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) dig deeper. They want to review the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, hoping to understand what happened during those lost minutes. But they hit a wall. The CVR in the Airbus A320 only saves the last 30 minutes of audio. Everything before that, the most critical part of the flight, is gone. But another version of events starts to emerge. A forwarded email surfaces, allegedly from a close friend of Captain Cheney. In it, Cheney offers a detailed personal account of the flight. According to the message, the problems began shortly after passing Denver. A flight attendant had brought Cheney his crew meal. As the flying pilot, he stepped out briefly to use the restroom. In the meantime, the first officer received a frequency change from Denver Center. But something goes wrong. The new frequency appears to be incorrect. It connects them to Winnipeg Center in Canada. He doesn't get a response, but no alarms go off. The radio remains filled with chatter from pilots on that Canadian frequency, giving the illusion that everything is normal. When Captain Cheney returns, the first officer doesn't mention the frequency change. The flight continues in silence from air traffic control, but the crew doesn't notice. They shift focus. The pilots begin talking about their schedules. Captain Cheney mentions his son, who is joining the Army. The first officer offers to help him better understand the new bidding system. Cheney briefly pulls out his laptop, then the first officer does the same. They compare notes, distracted yet unaware that they've already overflown Minneapolis. With a 100-knot tailwind pushing them along faster than expected, they sail past their destination. Eventually, a flight attendant calls the cockpit asking what time they'll land. Confused, the pilots check their navigation display, zoomed out too far to show nearby cities. They believe they're over Eau Claire, Wisconsin, when in fact they've already passed Minneapolis. Air traffic control finally reestablishes contact at 8:14 p.m. CDT controllers are suspicious. They have the crew perform several maneuvers to confirm the pilots are awake and in control of the aircraft. Only then are they cleared to return and land safely in Minneapolis. But what worries officials even more is the slow response on the ground. It takes over an hour before air traffic control finally alerts the Domestic Events Network. It is the system that links FAA to national defense. During that time, NORAD is not notified. In fact, fighter jets are only minutes away from being scrambled when contact is finally reestablished. In a later interview, General Jean Renoir, the commander of NORAD, says that an alert should be raised within 10 minutes of losing contact, not 60. If the call had come sooner, fighter jets would have been launched to intercept the plane. The FAA acts quickly. On October 27, 2009, the FAA takes decisive action. It revokes the licenses of both pilots involved in Flight 188. Their actions, and the confusion that followed, send shockwaves through the aviation industry. The incident doesn't just end with disciplinary action. It prompts major changes to cockpit protocol and air traffic control procedures across the country. One of the most serious concerns? The delay in response. More than an hour passes from the moment controllers lose contact with the aircraft to when they issue an alert through the Domestic Events Network, the system that connects air traffic control with national defense. In response, the FAA tightens the rules. A new directive, effective November 10, 2010, now requires that alerts be made within 5 minutes of losing radio contact with an aircraft, cutting the response time in half. To this day, some in aviation circles believe the explanation, however bizarre, might be the truth. It was not sleeping. It was not sabotage. It was a chain of human errors, distractions, and missed handoffs, more in the cockpit and on the ground. This flight never crashed. No one was hurt. And yet, it still made history for how much it exposed about the modern cockpit and the limits of multitasking at 37,000 feet. So, Flight 188 becomes a wake-up call. In the end, it's a quiet warning to every crew member, controller, and passenger. Even in the safest skies, attention is everything. What do you think? Was the FAA right to revoke the pilot's licenses? Or was this an honest mistake that got blown out of proportion? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy real aviation stories that go deeper than headlines, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, stay alert.